Greetings to all of you. I am Dr. Donald Jolly Gabriel. I'm PhD. I am in charge of the hyperbaric oxygen department at the Center for New Medicine. And I'm very excited to be here tonight to talk about oxygen. But before I talk about oxygen, I want to talk about something else. I said on the promo for this that I was going to tell everybody who was watching and listening to us what is the worst evil demon from the deepest, darkest pit of hell. And I want you all to know that because it affects each and every one of us. Each and every one of us. And it's something that is in everything that we do, practically, in terms of absorbing nutrients, and it's sugar. Sugar is the evil demon from the deepest, darkest pit of hell. And I want to acknowledge to all of you that one of the biggest responsibilities we have in our lives is to eliminate the intake of sugar in our bodies. It is destroying us. It is destroying us. There are people who are dying of diabetes and diabetes-like problems. There are millions of people on this earth that are literally suffering from cancer and feeding the cancer with sugar. And that is absolutely something that we have to learn how not to do. We do not need a lot of sugar, and we get sugar from things that we eat. Stay away from all the sugar products like candies and colas and cakes and ice creams and all that stuff. This is something I'm begging you. I'm begging you to do. It's a gift I'm giving you too. This information is an incredibly powerful gift. So please begin to look at sugar as an evil demon from the deepest, darkest pit of hell. Okay? That's the first thing I have to say tonight. What I want to talk about tonight is oxygen. Oxygen is something we don't think about. We're oblivious to. Oxygen is the most important thing our body needs to function, to stay alive. Without oxygen for 300 seconds, what happens to us? We die. We're gone. You know, we're dead. Except that I want to share with you something about the definition of death. It's very interesting. And this has a little bit of religious connotation to it, but that's okay. Jesus Christ was of the Aramaic culture, so am I. So I understand the language definitions very well, and the translations. So in Jesus' time, there was a country called Aram. Aram, that's where Aramaic came from. That was his language. It was a language at the time for many, many people. And Aram was a combination of what is now Lebanon and Syria. And Aramaic is an incredible language. And I want to tell you what the definition for the meaning of the translation of death is. The word is mut, and what it means in Aramaic is to be present someplace else, not to be here right now. It has nothing to do with obliteration. It has nothing to do with rotting away. And so whether you're Christian or Jewish or Buddha or whatever, and I've studied all of them. And I used to go to temple on Friday night at Wilshire Temple with Rabbi Magnum for years. And I went to Mass every morning from the time I was, 10 years old. Still do practically every morning, unless there's a little bit of an emergency, which I sometimes create. But that's okay too. So the word death, we look at it as being the end. In those times, it was never looked at as being the end. It was looked at as being someplace else, with emphasis on the else and emphasis on the now, not here now. And there's a funny story I'm going to tell you, and this is a funny story, and I'm going to take the time, because it's funny enough to take the time to tell you. There was, when I was a small boy, child, a store in Los Angeles called Europa Grocery. And Europa Grocery was run by the Habibi family, Effie and George Habibi. And they had another store over in Long Beach. So they had two stores. So the people in the culture are always wanting to buy stuff from them because it was all Middle Eastern type stuff they had. We had to go all the way to LA every other week on a Saturday. My mother would drag me there with my grandmother and cousins and whoever could shove in the car, and we would go there. Whenever somebody was there who was in the culture. They understood the Aramaic culture in great detail and language. And they would see Effie over in the store, over here in the corner somewhere, and George wasn't there. Whoever would say to her, "Effie, where's George?" And she'd scream at him, "Ah, he's dead now." When she said that, someone in the culture knew she was saying he was in the other store.
Wow.
So on a Saturday, my mother and I and cousins and God only knows who were there, and this big truck comes with the flowers, bringing flowers. And my mom said, "Effie, why are you buying so many flowers?" She says, "Oh, honey, every week I get plenty of flowers because people overhear that George died." So that's how they lived the real meaning of death in their culture, you see, which is good to know. Because sometimes we get so afraid when we think of death. And we got to remember that in those times, and whenever Jesus said it, and whether you believe that Jesus is this or that or doesn't, is irrelevant. He was historical, and he was here, and he said it. And what he said was, hey, every time he said the word, he was saying, they're someplace else, but they're not here now. And we need to think about that, because we get so embroiled in our life, and we think that this is all there is. And we're going to lose it, and there's going to be nothing. That's not it. We're all in transition. We're moving through the experience of life. And we are given the privilege of having a body to experience the physical stuff. If we exist in pure spirit, we're never going to know the wonders of a chair, or the wonders of an apple or an orange, or the wonders of each other, the wonders of being able to just commit to one another and to love each other and touch each other and feel each other and taste all the things of the world. So we're given a body in order to do that. And then the body is no longer useful, like a car is no longer useful to us. Eventually it won't work anymore. So anyway, you know now several things. I've taught you several things. They're being examined when we're done. So I want you to be very keen and remember everything I told you. Now we're going to talk about the most important thing our body uses, and it's called oxygen. Oxygen. And without oxygen for 250, 300 seconds, our body will be someplace else, and our soul will be someplace else. So we don't want to be there. Right now, we want to keep our body and soul together, right? We don't think about the importance of oxygen. It is extremely important. Extremely important. And most of us are oxygen deficient. And if we're a little bit oxygen deficient, our police sergeant over here, Justin, please stand up. If anybody doesn't know you, this is Justin. Justin is in charge of our hyperbaric department. He will run you if you go to the chamber. He's an expert in oxygen, and he's come here tonight to invade our privacy. And what he's going to do is he's going to put a little thing on the finger of each person who wants it, and he's going to check your oxygen level, and he's going to write down on a piece of paper what it is, and then I'm going to explain to you about it and what to do about it if it's too low, and I'm going to teach you breathing exercises that will get it higher, okay? In the meantime, I'm going to talk to you about hyperbaric oxygen. What is that weird word, hyperbaric oxygen? Hyperbaric, hyper means higher, more. You know, hyper kid is one that never stops, like me, going crazy. And baric has to do with atmospheric conditions, barometric pressure. So hyperbaric oxygen therapy applies oxygen under pressure. And when you are in a pressurized environment, what happens is what happens at Coca-Cola Company. When you go to Coca-Cola Company and you take a tour, you're seeing these massive amounts of Coke under pressure. And what happens under pressure? They put carbon dioxide gas, they force it with the pressure into the Coke, into the 7-Up, into all that stuff, and that's what gives it the fizz. So, since oxygen doesn't bubble in anything, when we go in the hyperbaric chamber and we're under pressure, the same thing happens to us that happens at the Coca-Cola plant. The pressure causes the gas to dissolve into the liquid. When we're in the chamber, I'm the liquid. My blood is the liquid, my body fluids are the liquid. 100% oxygen is absolutely magic, and it is dissolved into our blood. And that's what hyperbaric oxygen therapy is about. And it's a magnificent therapy. I was at a medical convention lecturing a couple of years back, and I heard this doctor reply to a question. Somebody asked him about hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And he said, "Oh, I don't know, it's a newfangled therapy, we don't know much about it." And man, did I get, I almost said the P word, but I'm not going to. I got aggravated. So I raised my hand, and I said, "Doctor, you said oxygen is a newfangled therapy. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy is newfangled." He said, "Yeah, it hasn't been around for long, we don't know much about it." And I said, "Doctor, the first hyperbaric chamber was made in 1662, baby.
Wow.
1662.
Wow.
He said, "It was?" And I said, "Yes. I can show you in the textbook of hyperbaric medicine even a photograph of it. Because in 1662, they didn't even know what oxygen was. But they could fabricate iron." See? So this guy, Dr. Bradshaw, who was a minister and a doctor, he had this thing made. He went to the cast iron people, and they made a cast iron chamber, and people started getting better. And they didn't even use oxygen. But guess what? When you put somebody under pressure, there's oxygen in the air. So you're going to dissolve the oxygen that's in the air into their blood. So they're going to get better. The only thing is, in the chamber, they have 100% oxygen. Here you have 21%. But if you're putting them under enough pressure, you're accelerating the level dramatically, absolutely dramatically. So that's what we do in hyperbaric oxygenation. Now, you had some questions from some people, Justin. You want to come up and sit with me and talk? Because if you're not sitting next to me, you won't be on this wild thing that they're trying to do. They're broadcasting us all over the world. There are billions watching us.
My hair's all messed up.
Well, that's all right. They don't care about your hair. They want your information.
So the first question is, how does hyperbarics benefit somebody who has cancer?
Oh my goodness. You know, many years ago there was a doctor, his name Otto Warburg, who was head of the Planck Institute in Germany. And he had this vision, this thought process, this whatever, inquisitiveness, and he thought that oxygen would affect the proliferation of cancer cells. And so he did a lot of work, and he did his own research, brilliant man, and he proved to himself he was right, that high levels of oxygen can slow down the rate of replication of cancer cells. Now, if somebody comes to you and says that high levels of oxygen can kill cancer off, that's a screwy lie. It doesn't kill it off. It slows down the replication rate. But if you are slowing down the replication rate by a certain percentage, and you get unhooked from sugar, and you slow down the replication rate because of that, and you're doing something else, and something else, and something else, and you're doing 5 things that are slowing down the replication rate, what are you going to do? You're going to extend life. And you may even create a remission situation. So that's what happens. Oxygen causes a slowdown of replication. Just like we would say, we have 7.5 billion people on Earth. Say we want 2 billion. So what we would do is we'd say, okay, let's sterilize everybody for 5 years or so. And eventually we'd slow down, or we'd sterilize half the population, or whatever they do. But we're not into that. And we can't do that with cancer cell work, but we can slow it down. We can slow it down. So my call to all of us who have some illness, take steps that are going to slow down the process of our illness, and take steps that will help us feel better, take steps that will extend our life so we can make this life more meaningful, okay? More meaningful. So Otto Warburg did his work, for which, ladies and gentlemen, he won a Nobel Prize in medicine. A Nobel Prize in medicine for discovering that fact. And guess what? Nothing happened to it. You know when it happened? You know when it started to proliferate? You know when Otto Warburg's work became okay to get out to the world? When the internet happened. That's why. You know why? My theory is because it was suppressed. Because it was suppressed. It wasn't promulgated by the authorities. It wasn't promulgated by the FDA. It wasn't promulgated by the American Cancer Society. Shouldn't it have been? Of course it should. So oxygen has that value. Does that answer the question for
I
whoever?
believe so, very well.
Okay.
Great.
Good, amen. And that's not the only, there's all kinds of work done now. All of you know about the ketogenic diet. If you don't, ask about it tomorrow. Because that diet with hyperbarics can be very helpful in slowing down the rate of replication. Very, very helpful. Also in reducing our weight, too. I used to weigh 395 pounds. That's a lie, of course. Okay, what else?
The second one is, how does hyperbarics benefit somebody who had a stroke?
Well, that's an interesting one, because I was just talking to a patient we had years ago. I treated in my hyperbaric life 9 people that had strokes right after they had the stroke, within hours. You know that not one of them developed symptoms? Not one of them developed symptoms. Got them right away, boom, in the chamber. You know that in Italy, if somebody has a stroke, and the doctor doesn't recommend hyperbaric therapy, they can be brought up before the medical board and possibly lose their license. Yeah. So what it does is in the initial stages, what it does is it's going to help to fix what happened initially so that it doesn't develop symptoms, because it's soon enough to do that. Now, after you have symptoms and you have a lot of paralysis and you have a lot of problems, then we have to have rehab. It helps with rehab, but it's hard work. And unfortunately, it's not cheap. There's a hospital, I'm not going to mention the hospital, but I will tell you it is the most prestigious hospital in all of California. It's a huge hospital. And it takes me 1 hour and 25 minutes to drive there. Now you guess, see which hospital it is. You know what they charge for hyperbaric oxygen therapy? $2,080 per treatment.
Wow.
$2,080 per treatment. Huh?
Wow.
So, what's the next question?
The next one is, how does it help to avoid an amputation?
Well, amputation is done when a body part is rotting so badly it's going to pollute the rest of the body, and the patient will be someplace else and not here now. Okay? So in order to avoid that, what we need to do is eliminate. If you have a horrific infection like necrotizing fasciitis, those of you who want to see some of these things, we have a few before and after pictures in the lobby of the hyperbaric department, and there's one horse that was dying of necrotizing fasciitis. A very expensive horse. And this horse was costing millions of dollars, and it was dying. And they put him in the hyperbaric chamber, and guess what? Boom! Well, the horse is wild and running and doing everything that it did before. And there's a young man who had necrotizing fasciitis here. If you have it on the leg, they just cut the leg off. They get rid of it. They don't worry about it. It's called flesh-eating bacteria. You've probably heard of it. Flesh-eating bacteria, necrotizing fasciitis, medical term for it. So you just cut it off. So when you put someone in a hyperbaric chamber with necrotizing fasciitis and give them some Cipro or some strong antibiotics, you prevent amputation. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I think this one may have been directly related to diabetes.
Diabetes, because sugar, evil demon from hell. It's going to cause all kinds of problems in your body. And it will destroy little blood vessels. It will help to slow down blood flow, which will assist infection in being created. And when it does, it retards the healing program because it stops the angiogenesis from taking place. Angiogenesis is the production of new blood vessels. You might not realize it, but we have blood vessels in our brain, in our lungs, in our kidneys that are so small that it can take 5 or more of them to match the size of one hair. That's how small they are. And so, that's one of the reasons why I could speak for hours tonight. I can't do this. What time is it? See, I'm supposed